Welcome to Ryan's Running Reviews in partnership with Roadrunner Sports, and today we're taking a look at a low-top hiking shoe from Merrell. It's the Moab Speed 2, so let's break it down. Before we get started, I do want to say these shoes were provided to me by Roadrunner Sports. However, no one had a chance to preview this video, and this file synopsis is my own. I'd also like to say please leave a like on the video and consider subscribing. Here we go. The Moab Speed 2 is a highly cushioned trail hiking shoe, great for outdoor adventures. You can use it for backpacking, casual wear, or your typical day hikes. It really is kind of intended to tackle anything outside. Now, what separates this from a typical trail running shoe? Well, in my opinion, low top hiking shoes and hiking shoes in general are going to be a bit more durable, have better structure to the midsole, and are going to be just a little bit heavier in general as well, just because they're not as concerned with weight compared to trail running shoes, which need to be a little bit lighter and more nimble. So for someone who wants cushioning, more structure to the shoe, and something that's going to last a bit longer, I think this will be right up your alley. Now, the Moab Speed 2 does come in a couple of different versions. There's a Gore-Tex upper edition, as well as a mid-cut edition if you want some more ankle support. But for this version, we're just taking a look at the Moab Speed 2 original. As far as the stats go, the shoe costs $140, which I think is pretty good considering all the premium materials and the build quality here. And then the stack height, we have 34 in the heel and 24 in the forefoot for a 10mm drop. And then the weight comes in at 12.34 ounces, which compared to like trail running shoes, yes, that's a bit heavier, but I think for a hiking shoe, that's not too bad at all, especially again, because of the materials that are included here. And I will say after wearing it, it didn't feel overly heavy or anything like that. The upper itself does fit true to size for me. However, I do have to say it is really accommodating, tons of volume here, and is extremely wide. Now, funny enough, the Moab Speed 2 does come in a wide edition, but the regular width is insanely generous, and I had to pull the laces quite tight to get a proper fit. So if you have a narrow foot, I would definitely go in a different direction, but if you like more room to your upper or have a wider foot in general, I think this could be for you. Now, as far as the lockdown goes, I thought it was good. It wasn't great, again, just because there's so much space here through the toe box, midfoot, and heel area. Had a little bit of sliding, no blisters or anything like that, and once I pulled the laces down and got everything situated, I was quite happy with the fit. It just wasn't as secure compared to, I'd say, a more normal fitting upper. The upper material itself is a fairly traditional mesh. I thought the breathability was fine. There's tons of overlays to give the upper even more structure, and because this is a hiking shoe, you do have that robust toe guard. It's a synthetic material with a decent amount of flex to it. I wouldn't say it's the most protective. It definitely works. It's just not a hard plastic or anything like that. Again, you can move it around fairly easily. It got the job done. It's just not the most protective toe cap I've ever seen. And then if we go into the tongue, it's lightly padded, or say moderately padded. I really liked it. I think it worked quite well. I will say it is gusseted. You have strips of fabric on both the lateral and medial side, which keep it in place. And it does have a tongue pull tab, which I'm happy to see. It's always a nice touch, but unlike some other hiking shoes, it's not fully gusseted. So theoretically, you could have debris kind of slip in between the tongue and the upper and get next to your foot. I didn't have that issue at all, but it is something I've seen on other shoes, and I would assume as you kind of get into weeds and things like that, that could potentially be an issue. So just wanted to point that out. But the tongue is gusseted, just not fully gusseted like I've seen on other hiking shoes. And then if we go back to the ankle and Achilles section, you do have a really stiff and rigid heel counter, which I'm really happy to see with, I'd say, moderate to high level of padding with a heel pull tab. And like I said before, ton of volume to this upper, and kind of the ankle and Achilles section is no exception. You have a fairly wide amount of volume here as well. So again, higher volume foot, I think you're gonna love this. For me, I have a normal size foot, had pull laces quite tight. Thought walk down was good, just not great. And if you have a narrow foot, you definitely want to go in different directions just because this is a super high volume shoe. The midsole was a welcome surprise. It was much softer than I expected. They're using something called Float Pro foam. I believe it's an EVA based material, but it had a nice level of compression to it. Now, it's not overly soft or squirrely. You don't want your hiking shoe to be this super soft experience because you want it to provide stability and support, and I definitely think this does. It kind of finds that nice balance. A lot of times when I try shoes like this, they end up feeling like a brick or just super firm, and that was not the case here at all. I really liked how they kind of incorporated it throughout the entire shoe. It has a nice balanced feel to it, and I think, like I said before, really impressed by this setup. Now, there's also something called a flex plate, which is basically a piece of plastic mostly through the midfoot and extends closer to the forefoot. That really stiffens up the shoe, adds a ton of torsional rigidity, and I think makes this a very stable hiking shoe. Now it does, I think, go a little bit closer towards the front. However, the toe section does have a decent amount of flex to it, which I think makes for a more natural walking experience. If you flip the shoe over, you can actually see this green plate here, and it does also help prevent rocks from kind of getting to your foot and preventing foot fatigue, and that was my experience. You can definitely feel kind of where the rock is under your foot, but it's much better compared to a shoe that does not have that flex plate underneath. And then for what might be the star of the shoe, we have a ton of rubber on the outsole with large 4mm Vibram traction lugs. It's actually, I think, a special edition of Vibram rubber. It's the TC5 Plus. And for me, it didn't let me down whatsoever. I did some rock scrambling and just going up hills, down hills, and everything in between. And I really don't have much negative to say about it. It really gripped the ground quite well. I felt like I was able to trust my footing, even in some precarious situations. Maybe the one downside is, yes, the lugs are a little bit close together, so they can get caked up fairly easily. But for me, I was quite happy with them. And as someone who does a lot of backpacking and hiking, I was quite impressed with this lug setup. So what are my overall thoughts about the Moab Speed 2? Well, I'm quite impressed. And for being a dedicated trail hiking shoe and keeping that in mind, this is definitely something I would pick up, especially because it's a little bit lighter compared to a full boot, but still offers a lot of that support and comfort that you come to expect. The only downsides for me really are there's just a ton of volume to the upper. It's not a massive deal breaker and can be kind of nice if you want to loosen things up and when your feet swell, or if you want to double up the socks, or if you just have a wider foot in general. It kind of gives you some options. And maybe I do wish the toe guard was a bit more stiff and rigid because I have clumsy feet and tend to kick a lot of rocks. But overall, I really like this midsole. Plenty of comfort. Again, kind of the right level of compression here. It's not a brick, but it's not overly soft and squirrely. And then the outsole definitely gets the job done. I think it works really well together to create a very consistent and reliable and comfortable feel. You have a decent amount of bend in the forefoot, which I think kind of keeps things moving and doesn't make it feel like a kind of strict cast around your foot, but you do have that torsional rigidity across the midfoot, which gives you that support, especially if you're carrying a ton of weight on your back. So overall, as someone who does, again, a lot of hiking, backpacking, things like that, I would definitely recommend this if you want a dedicated hiking shoe. And if for someone who wants maybe something lighter, I think that's kind of where more of the trail running shoes come in place. So if you want something a little bit faster, lighter, this might not be your option. But if you're doing, again, those more consistent, kind of more even paced hikes, this I think is a good way to go. And they do make, again, a mid version of this if you want some ankle support, and a Gore-Tex version if you want that waterproofing on your upper. But yeah, again, really like what they're doing here. I think the midsole and outsole really work together to separate this from most other low top hiking options. Well, that concludes the review. Let me know in the comments what you think of the Moab Speed 2. Would you rather go with a different version, or are you someone who really likes a low top hiking shoe? I would love to hear from you. I'm Ryan from Ryan's Running Reviews, and I'll catch you guys on the next one. Thanks.